function of marketing, environment, which has got impact on all functions, almost all, if you see, production, finance, HR, marketing, research and development, operations, supply chain, logistics, any particular function you take up for a business, the environment in which that particular business operates has got an impact on any one of the activities that the business does. So in this course, you would be learning about what is the environment in which businesses are done, especially in Indian context, and a little bit about what is the environment across the world, and how do you go about understanding the various components which are there in that environment, and then how do you go about measuring what kind of an impact does each one of these components have got on the activities of a business. You're free to put any message in case you have any questions in the chat, which is there. If you're allowed to unmute yourself, you can do that as well. In case you have any doubts in your mind, do not proceed with doubts. So let us come to the introduction part where we talk about the meaning of these words, business environment. Now, I hope my screen is visible to you. So I'm running the PPT there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, of course.
Right. So you see, we are going to learn in today's class about what is a business, what is an environment, and then what is a business environment. So the business environment comprising of these two terms, a business and the environment. And then we will focus upon a combination of these two, what is business environment. And then we will learn about the nature objectives, different types of environments which are there, and how these different types of environment interact with one another. At the same time, we will also learn about how companies go about measuring or understanding or knowing what kind of analysis can be done to know the environmental forces which are around. Now, if you see the definitions which are there, firstly, you talk about a common definition of what is business. So business is basically understood as a human activity where, people come together, different types of people come together from different places, having different skill sets, employing different types of resources so that they engage in the activity of producing goods, producing services, distributing these goods, distributing these services so that needs of the customers are being met and the business is able to earn profit for its survival and growth. So you are basically talking about human activity where many people come together for creation of wealth, which can be done through production and distribution of goods and services. That is a business. So we are basically concerned more about businesses which are commercial in nature rather than those which are not for profit type of a thing, where we are concerned about. No, the class is about business environment. This is a subject that you have. This is a common paper for all students, whether you are a student of marketing or HRM or operations. There are certain common papers that you have got. So business environment is a common paper for all the courses across. So therefore, somebody asked a question. So business is basically a human activity which is carried out by a group of people. And these people come together so that they can create wealth. How does that wealth get created? Through production and distribution of goods and services. I hope you know the basic difference between a good and a service. Anything which is tangible, anything which you can see, touch, feel, inspect before buying is a good. Whereas a service is anything which is intangible, inseparable from the service provider, and which you can only experience. You cannot see it as such. It's called as a service. So whether the company is engaged in production and distribution of goods, such as, we talk about refrigerators, cars, soap, shampoos that we use in our daily life, all of these are categorized as goods. Or services where we talk about banking, insurance, education, we talk about services in terms of research and development, consultancy of a business. All these are all services which are offered to the business. So whether the business is engaged in production and distribution of goods or whether the firm is doing rendering of services, all of that put together contributes towards production of wealth for the business where people come together and do that particular activity. So that activity is called as a business in general sense. Let us see these two definitions which are there. Melvin Hansen says, business is the way by which men make their living. So to live, we engage in different types of livelihood activities. So one of the activity of livelihood is to do a business. Then another definition definition about business is given by Wheeler, where Wheeler says that business is any institution which is organized and which operates to provide goods and services to the society. In return, they get back a private gain. That is nothing but a profit. So any institution where people come together and work in an organized way so that goods and services can be provided to the society, where in return they are getting some kind of a profit, is called as a business. These are the basic definitions which are there related to what a business is. Let us understand what is an environment. Now, environment basically comprises of all those actors and factors and components which has got influence on all the aspects of a business, on all the things which happen around that particular business. So whether you talk about, how an organization is born, how an organization grows and develops, it gets influenced by so many factors around it, so many variables which are around it. So all those variables, all those factors and actors put together, which will have an influence on the activities of a business, is basically called as an environment. So it is, the environment is a greater set which comprises of many subsets within it. And each one of the subset will have some of the other impact on the activity of a business. So you are basically talking about, all those factors which will have an impact on activity of a business, where you are talking about how that business is getting influenced by either, different environments which are around it, environments in terms of technology, natural environment, physical environment which is there, or you talk about economic environment, all the environments put together which are outside the business, or all the environmental factors which are inside the business, where you talk about, your own employees, your own suppliers, competitors who are there in the market. Those also put together has got some or the other impact on that particular business. So we are basically talking about environment comprising of a greater subset which has got many subsets under it, actors and factors, which has an impact on the activity of a particular business. So that you call as an environment. So business and environment we have understood. Let us see what is business environment. So business environment, basically anything which is surrounding the business, which has got an impact on the operation of the business, which has got an impact on the effectiveness of the business, is called as your business environment. Here, Keith Davis, who is one of the major economists, he has defined business environment as aggregate of all the conditions, events, and influences that surround and affect a particular business. So aggregate means combination. So total or combination of all the conditions which are around a particular business, all the events which may be happening around a business, which has got an influence on that particular business, is called as a business environment, according to Keith Davis. So anything, as I was saying, factors, actors, aspects, components, anything which is surrounding the business, which is having an effect on how the business is run, how operations take place, how effectiveness of a business activity gets impacted by the actors and the factors, you call it as a business environment around that particular business. So you see, you have things like, for example, you talk about currently there's a lot of talk which is going on about, Digital India program, where the government is thinking about incorporating cyber competition as an act there. So now that particular business, that particular environment is related to the legal systems, where you're talking about a law which is being framed. Now, if a law is being framed which is related to cyber competition, and if you are a player, if you are a business in the market which is related to online business, then naturally that particular law will have an impact on your business. So what happens there? You are talking about, a particular environmental factor which has got an impact on that particular business, like political environment. Or you talk about an environment like economic, where you say so much of inflation there around, and that economic growth of a country, GDP of a country, all of that will have an impact on how the businesses are being run. Or you talk about regulatory environment. Say, for example, if you are a bank which is rendering services, then your regulator will be Reserve Bank of India if you are in India, because that's the central bank. So that the policies made by the central bank will have an impact on your banking business because that's a regulatory environment which is there. Or you talk about, socio-cultural environment, the environment which is there generally in the society to which the consumers belong, where you talk about, their social backgrounds, you talk about their economic background, you talk about the demographics. So all of that will have an impact on the business. So you are talking about combination, aggregation of all these things which have an impact on the activities of a particular business. Let us now examine what is the nature of this business environment. First of all, business environment is very complex in nature. When people have to do business, they have to take into consideration so many things around them. So many events will be happening, so many conditions will be there, so many market forces will be there which will impact the business. So the environment as such is not very simple. It's a very complex environment where businesses get impacted by lot many things. Even if you're running a small business like a grocery store, then even in that particular case where it's a small business being run or a tiffin center if you have opened or you are doing a small business on an e-commerce platform, then also even if the business is small, it gets impacted by a lot many number of factors which are around it. No doubt all the big businesses also gets impacted by so many factors. So all these put together, they're not very simple to understand. They are very complex as such, where the impact on the business also will be dynamic. So the environment which is there is complex to understand, and the companies will have to make a note of their complex environment. Otherwise, they will lag behind and they will have to quit the market if they don't understand the complexity of that particular business environment and they don't make policies according to the complexity of their business environment. So that is one. The environment is very complex in nature. Second is interdependence. Now, when you have so many environmental factors in a business environment, all of those environmental factors depend upon one another. You cannot segregate the effect of one on the other. Each one has got an impact on the other. You talk about social environment, it will have an impact on economic, it will have an impact, it has impact on cultural. Similarly, you talk about legal environment, it will have an impact on, say, for example, if you talk about, international relations that a country has got with some other country in the world. Now you are running a business where a particular country's international relations with the other country, say A and B are two countries. You talk about country A's international relations with country B, not very good. And you as a business is importing raw material from country B. Now the international relations that are there between these two countries is a part of the broader economic environment which is there. Now, if that is not there, that will have an impact on your business, the growth of your business, it will have impact on the other environments which are there around mobility of labor. So you talk about demographics there, movement of technology, so the technical environment will come into picture, laws by the governments of both the countries. So legal environment will come into picture because the countries are not in good terms with one another. So your international relations is impacting all the other environments which are around. So you talk about the factors which are affecting the business environment, social, economic, legal. These are all the broader factors which are there. And all of them will have an impact on how each one affects the other business. So therefore, they are all interdependent on one another, which is there. The example is being given. A rich country can make sufficient expenditure on research and development because they have got a lot of money with them. So therefore, when economic environment, GDP is good, money is flowing. So that has got an impact on technology advancement. So technological environment. So economic environment, technological environment get links there because money is there in the country. They are able to invest that money in the technology. So economic environment, technological environment gets connected. Likewise, any environment you choose, there are interdependencies which are established between the environments which are. Then the business environment is very dynamic. Changes keep happening, improvements keep happening. People keep entering and exiting the market. Technology changes keep happening. There is so much of investment which is happening in research and development, and new innovative products keep coming. Old products being redesigned with innovative features which are there. So that way you have, you cannot say that the environment is static. The environment is always dynamic, where there's something or the other which is happening around, and businesses will have to make a note of all the changes which are happening now. For example, you talk about demographic environment, where earlier we used to say that women workforce. We are talking about somewhere like 12, 15 years back, when the number of women who were actually there in the main force workforce of a firm were very less. So at that point of time, if you see the employee demographics, then there most of the workforce comprised of men. Only few women would work. But today, if you see, there are more women who are working. So what is happening there? You are talking about the social cultural environments there, women from different backgrounds, different cultures, different social customs, norms coming forward to work. And then you're also seeing that the workforce changes which are happening. So therefore, you're talking about internal environment of a business and these other environments which are there connected. And at the same time, you see that this is keeping on changing. You talk about the entry of women in the workforce, then you talk about entry of millennials in the workforce. Today you're talking about or entry of robots in the workforce, so everything done by robots. So like that, you are having changes which are happening in the workforce. That is one example. If you talk about banking industry, for instance, you would say that banking industry started automation somewhere around 20 to 30 years back, and then we slowly moved from a printed passbook to a from a handwritten passbook to a printed passbook. Then we slowly moved to something called as then today we're talking about mobile banking, online banking, and then companies, banks having to reward consumers for not coming to bank. Bank is saying don't come to us. Use all our e-commerce platforms. Use internet banking. Use mobile banking. Use our apps. So what is happening constantly? The environment is changing, which keeps on coming, and it is not constant as such. But the change is very dynamic in nature. So therefore, you talk about the business environment, which is dynamic, interdependence, and dynamic. Then you would say uncertain. There are a lot of prediction tools which are available to predict what kind of changes will happen in the business environment. But at the same time, the business environment is to a greater extent uncertain, because you will not be able to predict with certainty that this surely is going to happen. You even analysts who do analysis of the business environment, they also predict, but not with 100% accuracy. So the prediction which you do related to changes in the business environment, because they are all uncertain, and the changes are all related to the future. So future naturally is uncertain. So there you talk about uncertainty which is associated with the business environment, because it is related to future, and prediction of the future cannot be done with complete accuracy. So therefore, business environment largely happens to be uncertain. You do not know what will happen to different types of environments surrounding the business. Sometimes, say for example, you talk about the physical environment which was there 3 years back. We talk about COVID. So there, business is not impacted so devastatedly because of the COVID pandemic, that with certainty they were not able to predict to what extent or how many years that particular thing would last, and what kind of losses the business would suffer. So therefore the prediction had happened, but the prediction was not certain as such, because it is all associated with the future certain events which happen. Say you talk about war between two countries, you talk about changes in the governments which are there, you talk about policies which are made by the regulators who regulate a particular business environment, or simple to understand, you talk about habits, preferences of the consumers. Everything keeps changing. So all these are all related to environment. So, and all these are all uncertain. You cannot predict with complete accuracy that this will happen in the business as such. So uncertainty surrounds the business environment. And then you have relativity. See, business environments will be different for different countries of the world. The environment which is there in one country may be supportive of a particular thing. Same thing may not be supportive in another country. You talk about relativity, where the concept of business environment applies to different countries in different terms. For example, you talk about China, which is slowly opening up. Otherwise, we say China is a very capitalistic economy. where it is a closed economy, where you don't talk about opening up of the economy very liberally. Whereas India adopted liberalization way back in 1991, and the economy is liberated. So here, the business environment differs from country to country, region to region. Within a particular country, also from one state to another state, also business environments could be different. It depends upon people who are governing that particular state. For example, you talk about countries which are unions, like United States of America. You talk about United Arab Emirates, where it is a combination of many other different nations within itself. Europe, you talk about. These are all, countries in the world where within the broader country they have got smaller nations, smaller states which are there, and each one of them are governed by their own business environments which are there. So the concept of environment is very relative, as it differs from one country to another country, it differs from one region to another. So you cannot say that this environment will be there everywhere. It keeps on changing from even within a particular country also. You see in India, you travel from north to south, their business environment changes. You talk about demand for products, customer preferences. You talk about technology adoption. You talk about support of government for different schemes and policies. You talk about number of people who run businesses. All of these will be different from, even if you travel within India, just from north to south, you will see so many differences which are there. So the concept of business environment is a very relative concept. You don't say that it is an absolute concept where you say that it applies similarly to all countries in the world or to all states in a particular country. So it's relative as such. Then, in a business environment, you have specific forces and general forces. General forces which will impact all businesses, and specific forces which will impact a particular individual company. Say something. See, when there are common factors which are impacting all businesses, then you call it as general forces. For example, inflation. Now, inflation is a common factor related to economic environment of the country, which will impact all businesses as such. On the other hand, you talk about rise. Now we are experiencing rise in prices of tomatoes, vegetables. So because no rains here in Hyderabad, so we have all the prices of vegetables soaring up. Now, if you were a business who was running restaurant, if you were a hotel business or a restaurant business, naturally you would find it difficult to match up your previous cost and the current cost because inflation is there. So now, because you are into that particular industry which is using that raw material directly, the impact for you will be different because your individual enterprise has got that as a special force which is impacting. Inflation impacts all the businesses in a general sense, but because the prices of vegetables are rising and you are running a hotel business, it has got a specific impact on you specifically, which it may not have on other businesses as such, but the impact would be different. So in general sense, impact is there, and there are specific impacts that the environmental forces has got on certain businesses. So certain individual enterprises have got a specific force which is impacting them, and then there are general forces which are impacting all the businesses which are there around them. Right? So specific and general forces. Then you talk about the analysis of the business environment, which helps forecasting. If a particular company does analysis of their environment, not 100% accuracy because it is uncertain, but at least with a good accuracy, they are able to. What is it? Forecasting. See, forecasting may not be possible for all the businesses that are there. And some businesses will have to run where these forecasting techniques may not be available. Whereas for some businesses, you can do forecast very accurately, like inflation rates, interest rates, and all. It would be a little easy for you to make predictions for these rather than compared to change in customer habits, preferences, needs of consumers, technology changes, adoption of automation and technology. These would be a little difficult to predict when compared to the other environmental factors. So some prediction, some forecasting can be done with much ease, while some of the predictions, some of the forecasting may not be done with so much of an ease. So you have forecasting, not possible for all the developments which are there, right? These were the points which spoke about nature of business environment. So to sum up, environment which is surrounding the business is complex. All the components in the environment are interdependent on one another and they keep on changing. They are not constant, so they are dynamic in nature. And prediction cannot be done with complete accuracy because they are uncertain, and the concept of the environment differs from country to country, region to region. The impact that the environmental forces has got will be specific on individual businesses and general for all the businesses which are there. And forecasting, when you do, it may not be possible for all the developments which are happening in the business environment. These were the points which contributed to understanding the nature of business environment, right? Let us now go to what are the objectives of business environment. Why the study of business environment is essential for the company. Why should companies actually do an analysis of the environment which is around them? Firstly, knowledge of information. See, whatever is happening around you, because your business is also a part of the broader environment, naturally you should be aware about what is happening around you, irrespective of whether the business is big or small. It is essential that you know whatever is the environment around you. As a businessman, you have to have knowledge about what is happening in and around, because today also we have some businesses which are very traditional in nature, where they are not impacted much with what happens around them. Say for example, you talk about businesses like goldsmiths, very traditionally which they are running, grocery stores where family businesses were being run. They also have to have little knowledge at least about the environment which is surrounding their business. More dynamically, there are other businesses like when you have bigger companies like Infosys or TCS, or you have the startup companies where they talk about just entering into the business environment. Then each one of these businesses, it is very essential that for them to run their business, they have to have a complete knowledge about what are the environments which are around them. If they are not aware about policies which are surrounding the business, if they are not aware about HR changes which are there, if they are not aware about the latest technology that the business has to use, then the business success will be very doubtful. So it is essential that all the businessmen have to be aware about what are the environmental factors which are surrounding that particular business, so that they adjust their business policies according to the environment. See, there are environments which can be within your control, which I'll discuss in a short while, and there are some environments which are beyond your control. So therefore, for those environments where you cannot control, it is very important that you have to have knowledge about all that particular environment. So knowledge of environment, it becomes very essential. Then business, that particular knowledge that you have about the business will help you in order to make a decision. So you're talking about a basis of decision. uh, when you are analyzing the environment which is around you, you are talking about making that knowledge as a base for you to take all types of decisions, because that particular information about the environment which you have got, it will help you in order to understand and take a correct decision in the company. Say you have example of companies which are talking about how much are competitors charging prices, how much are competitors paying to the employees. So if you are aware about your competitors movements, what is happening in the industry to which you belong. Say for example, you are a company in the insurance industry. Then in the insurance industry, why will somebody join your company and not join XYZ? Probably you will have to make sure that you understand what are the dynamics of your company and that company. How much are you paying, how much are they paying, what are the other work conditions and other terms and conditions of work that you have and other companies have got. So that information which is related to the business will become a base for you to recruit people into the company. Same way, any environment you take, say for example, you are taking a decision about expanding your business and you want to enter into some other country. So you talk about global, going global, or selling your product in another country. Now, before you sell, you have to understand the culture in that particular country. Otherwise, whether your product will be accepted given the cultural dimensions of that particular country or not, you have to be very sure about it. I will discuss in detail when we come to cultural environment, but that particular knowledge about the culture will become a base for you to take a decision whether to enter in that country or not enter in that country, right? So knowledge about the business environment also helps companies to take decisions as such, and it helps in making policies. Businesses make all kinds of rules and guidelines for business to run. So unless you scan the environment, unless you know what is happening around you, you will not be able to frame a good policy for your business. So it helps in making policy. Then it helps in planning for technology. See, all businesses today are driven by technology. So whether businesses which are not willing to embrace technology will automatically die. So therefore, companies today, businesses today have to embrace technology, and that also at a very faster pace because the technology changes are much faster. So therefore, when you talk about knowing the environment, you can plan as to what kind of a technology you have to adopt, what kind of technological changes are happening in the market, and in what way your business responds to that particular technology. So technological planning can also be done when you are aware about the business environment which is around you. Then to survive, unless companies know what is happening around, they will not be able to survive in the market because you have sort of tough competition. Then there are regulations which are there. Consumers are ready to jump from one brand to another brand if they are not satisfied. So unless you know the environment which is around you, you will not be able to survive in the market. So the objective of understanding the business environment is basically have knowledge about the environment, take good decisions on the basis of that particular knowledge, make policies based upon the data that you have collected from the environment, plan for the technology of the company depending upon what are the environments around you, and to survive in the market, you have to have complete knowledge about the environments which are there now. So the objectives would be summed up in this way. Now coming to what types of environments are there. Environment which is within your reach, which is controllable by you, and which you can influence is internal environment. Environment which is beyond your control, environment which influences your business is external environment. Under internal environment, you've got, there is also one company called McKinsey, which is a research company that did a research on how companies manage themselves. So they talked about 7S framework, just to add a little bit to the internal environment. I'm telling. In 7S, they speak about all the environmental factors which begin with the letter S, and they say style, strategy, structure of the company. Then they talk about system which is there. All these S's will contribute towards understanding the business environment. That is one way of understanding it, which is from a strategic point of view. But here, in the environment's point of view, you can just give a running reference to that. Here, from a perspective of business environment, we basically say that internal and external environment. So in internal environment, you talk about all the resources of the company. See, company basically has got 4 types of resources. You say physical, tangible resources, plant, machine, land, building, tangible physical resources. Human resources, knowledge, capabilities, number of employees, skill set of employees, human resources. Technological resources, technical know-how, expertise, research and development that they have, technological resources. Then financial, capital, their own capital, debt capital, money raised through bonds, money raised through any other instrument in the market. All these are financial resources that or profits, retained earnings, all of those things. So physical resources, financial resources, human resources, technological resources, 4 types of resources are. All these, out of all these resources, you would have some resources which are within your control, where you talk about how much machines can I buy, how many machines do I employ, how much land can I acquire for my business, how many business units can I have. These are all within your hands to a greater extent. So physical resources are there. Similarly, financial. How much money are you investing? How much money are you raising through an IPO? How much money are banks are willing to give you when you give a proposal of doing your business to some extent in your hand? So financial resources. Human resources, what kind of people you engage, employ in the company, what skills you are looking for, again within your hand. So that way you talk about these some resources which are in your hand while some others not in your hand. So therefore you talk about internal environment. Then you talk about why are you running the business? What is the objective of running the business? Most of the businesses are run with the intention of doubling money, making profit, while many more businesses are also run with the intention of providing quality services to the consumer. So you talk about objectives of a business. Why is the business running? Survival, growth, service to the community, welfare of the society, uh, our quality goods to consumers at reasonable prices. Different types of objectives would be there for the business. Basically, profit maximization, wealth maximization, we call as the objectives of a particular business, right? So you're talking about, objectives of a business. Basically, as I said, profit maximization, wealth maximization will be the core objectives of a business. So that objective also within the control of a business, internal environment. Then, what kind of environment do you provide to your workforce? So, where you talk about, culture in the company, work environments which are there around, that also has a part of your internal environment which is there. So, work environment, culture,
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm connected with a different Bluetooth there. Some issue, right? So, work environment where we talk about culture of a company, or we talk about what kind of social relations are there in the company, which will have an impact on how the business actually is being run, how the activity internally is being done, which again is in the control of a business to a greater extent. Similarly, how is the labor managed, what kind of technological capabilities the company has within itself, what kind of brand building and image it has got in the market. Some environmental factors where little bit of control can be exercised by the company, which will have an impact on the business environment, which is it. For example, you talk about style of leadership. When people lead a company, whoever is the CEO or the managing director and the leaders of that particular company, their style of working, their leadership that they have naturally has got an impact on how people actually get led, and how people behave in the company, how people work towards the goal of the company. So that leadership style has got an impact. Similarly, structure of a company, for example, you talk about. Um, we've been studying different types of structures which are there, where we say line structure, line and staff structure. Now, modern structures where you have virtual organization, very flat structures, where you would say that the entire hierarchy is broken, and that has got an impact on how business processes are done, how activities are done. For example, you talk about public sector organizations where you have a bureaucratic style of functioning, and then you have a tall structure, so many hierarchical levels. If you have to take a decision, you have to ask for higher ups and then take a decision. But today you talk about modern organizations, very lean organizations, where you have a very flat structure. And if you have to take a decision, that can be done very quickly because only one or two hierarchy levels are there. Probably you have a president. Under the president of that particular operation, whichever could be the operation, under the president of that function or the president of that operation, you only have a team leader. Then you have the team members. So the team members can easily take a decision because the structure is flat. So these factors are under the control of the company, which are related to the internal environment. Then you have external environment where you have factors which are micro and macro. Factors which are which have got a little impact and also smaller to study. Which have a major impact and which are larger to study. So that way, micro and macro environmental factors which are there. So you talk about competitors in the market, customers who are there, general publics that you call, media that you have, suppliers of your business that you have. All of these people are smaller factors which are there, but they belong to the external environment only. They are not within the company. Your suppliers are not within the company, your consumers are not within the company, your media is not within the company, neither is your stakeholders like investors, bankers are within the company, but they are all in the external environment. But these have got smaller impacts on the business as such. So you call them as a micro environment. The distributors, marketing intermediaries, suppliers of raw material, partners who are rendering services in your business, competitors who are there in the market. These are all environmental factors which has got impact on the environment, which belong to the external environment, but their impact is little lesser when compared to other factors which are broader in nature, like the whole economy, the entire technology changes, whole of culture which is followed in a particular country or a state, the entire society as such. These are all broader environments which have got greater impact. So therefore, you call them as micro and macro environmental factors. So you have internal and then you have external. Then under external, you have micro and macro. Let us very quickly talk about these environmental factors. Internal. So internally, I said finances, money that you have got, whether your own capital is there, you have raised capital from some other sources, whether you have issued equity or preference capital, whether you have raised money through giving debentures, that is your debt, whether you have taken loans from banks, people have invested money in other portfolios which your company is offering. All that put together will be the financial capital decisions of the company, which has got impact on the decisions of a company. Then you have all resources, physical and human, as I was talking about, skill set of people, number of people that you have in the company, what kind of value systems they have got, what kind of training was being imparted to them, what kind of expertise they have got. Put together will be your human resources which are there. Then whatever is the business objective and what direction you want to take your business, the internal factor, the entire work structure, as I was telling, tall structure, flat structure. You have got the structure which is having professionalism. So leaders who are there in the company, how they manage the company, what kind of an image does the company have in the market, how do you maintain relations with the labor, and what kind of capabilities you have. All of that internal factors which are external, as I said, micro and macro. So you have suppliers of raw material as a major partner in the micro environment. And see, in case the suppliers don't supply to your raw material in time, or they have raised money, or they are not able to procure raw material themselves, then how will your production run? How will you be able to meet market demand? So your inventory costs also are associated with the supply. So to some extent, they belong to the external environment, which is your micro. Then customers, you have to identify who your consumers are, what kind of demographics they have, that is their gender, their age, their education. You talk about their socioeconomic background. All of that will have an impact on how the company has to produce and sell goods and services. Competitors. If a competitor slashes the price, is the company also going to do the same? So you have to study the movements of the competitor. You talk about, entry of Reliance Jio in telecommunications. When Jio entered, their prices were so less that so many people jumped from other service providers like Airtel, Vodafone, BSNL to Jio. Because naturally, competitor entering into the market with a lower price, consumers will shift their and go away to this particular company. So as a business, you have to very closely examine what kind of movements the competitors are making. Then all your intermediaries, marketing intermediaries, retailers, distributors, all these people who are helping you to reach the final consumer, they also belong to the entire supply chain, value chain of the company, and you have to have complete information about them as well. Then public, as I was saying, see media, the government, bureaucrats with whom you lobby, all of them will have an impact on the business. So you talk about this as micro. Macro, where you talk about, the extent of impact is broader, general in nature. So you have the factors there. Under that, again, you can divide as economic and non-economic. Under economic, you talk about, the policies of the country, growth in terms of economy, GDP of a country, inflation rate of a country, economic system that a country follows, all put together will be a part of your economic environment. See, today, if you talk about a country like India, where you would say growing unemployment, or you would say high inflationary tendencies on one hand. On the other hand, you are also talking about, foreign investments being attracted, new businesses starting, opening up of the economy, privatization happening, more businesses in the private regime. All these are on the other hand. So that all of this put together will have an impact on how your business is being run as such. So economic environment. Then socio-cultural. Habits, customs, traditions, value systems of people who are actually living in a society, who are potential buyers for your products and services. What kind of belief system do they have? What kind of value system they have? What kind of traditions and customs and norms they follow? All of that will have an impact on the way the businesses are being run. For example, you talk about MNCs like McDonald's who try to enter India. The concept of a vegetable burger being launched by McDonald's is very specifically applicable to Indian market only, because when McDonald's was selling burger, it was basically selling meat, beef, pork, and all in other countries of the world. But when it entered India, the specific reason for them to get into a vegetarian burger was the majority religion, the culture which was being followed, where people wanted prefer vegetarianism when compared to eating the other forms of meat and all. So you talk about the culture and the habit of people shaping a particular business offer. Similarly, if you want to, if you are an MNC and you want to enter into a foreign country, for example, you have to understand what kind of a cultural belief, value system they have got. For example, companies, have not alcohol companies, for example, find it very difficult. In fact, impossible to penetrate into countries like Saudi Arabia because you have a bar there where drinking alcohol is prohibited as per the majority religion that they have got Islam. So it doesn't permit the companies which are selling alcohol as such to enter into their zones. So there, the culture of that particular country has got an impact on all these businesses which are. So like that, culture, social society, value system, beliefs, attitudes of the people will have an impact on how the businesses are being run. The legal environment, law system which are there in the country. See, most people get confused between political environment and legal environment. Political environment is to do with people in power, whereas legal environment is to do with laws which are made. When you have political environment, you talk about which political party, what is their ideology, how they influence business, who are the lawmakers, what kind of laws they frame, and how those laws are supportive to a particular country. So you a particular business. So you talk about the legal environment which is there. Say any industry that you talk about, there are certain laws which the industry has to follow. You talk about Consumer Protection Act, so businesses will have to follow that. You talk about Payment of Wages Act, so businesses will have to follow that. You talk about Workmen Compensation Act, so businesses will have to follow that. These are all laws. Income Tax Act, you talk about value add, you talk about GST, which is a new tax regime, so businesses will have to follow that. These are all a part of law which is framed in a particular country. So the business environment gets impacted. Day-to-day operations of a business and strategic decisions of a business get impacted by the legal environment. Then the international environment, what kind of international relations you have with the other country, in what way imports export take place. So you're basically talking about exim policies of a country, and what kind of international relations are there between countries of the world. So that also has got an impact on the business. These are all non-economic environment which is there. So political also, I was telling people in power who are influencing businesses which are. Then technological environment, where you talk about technologies which are hard in nature, where you say tangible machines and all, and technology which are soft, where you talk about scientific thinking, IPR, which are being used in order to solve problems and progress. So you talk about the degree of advancement which is happening today. You see, most businesses are being done with the help of machines and softwares. Where you talk about automation being done, robotics being engaged, and then today you're talking about artificial intelligence. So every business you see making use of artificial intelligence. They have got machine learning processes. Their banks and insurance companies, for example. Earlier, when I wanted to buy an insurance policy, I had to contact the agent, tell him entire demographics, and then he would tell me two policies to choose from. Today, there's no agent at all. The concept of agent is coming down because you have the machine which is doing the work for you. You feed your data in the software, and the software responds to you through the use of your artificial intelligence. You talk about industries like retail. Best example is your lens cut. You want to buy your glasses, or you want to buy contact lenses, you don't have to walk into the store as well. You open the app on the website, and then you see which frame fits your face by uploading your picture, your photo, and then they tell you, which frame you can choose or what type of contact lenses you got to have. So everything is done through a software, through a machine, through artificial intelligence. So unless businesses embrace the kind of technological improvements which happen, it will become very difficult for them to sell goods and services which are there in the market. So the entire technological environment very rapidly it is impacting the way the businesses are being done. So even you talk about, when earlier shopping used to be an experience, but today shopping is just at a click. Watching a movie used to be an experience earlier. Today, the OTT, you watch all movies which are there. So that way, companies are embracing the latest technologies which are there, and consumers are also adopting the kind of technologies which are being developed by the company. Then you have the natural environment. Natural resources that the nature has given you. God has bestowed each one of the countries of the world with certain natural environments which are there, natural resources which are there. So managing these natural resources very sensitively to meet the demands of the market for the business. So business has to take responsibility related to that. Many of the companies today, if you see, they are going green, talking about sustainable production, talking about less carbon emissions. Businesses talking about not impacting the climate changes which are happening around. Uh, you talk about lawmakers also making laws related to emission rules of manufacturing companies when they manufacture a product. Automobile companies, for example, you talk about standards which are being set like BS4, BS6. So you have all these are all factors which are part of your natural environment where you talk about the weather conditions. You talk about the natural resources which are being endowed in a particular. Today, you see small countries like Maldives, Bali, and all are all threatened today because we are predicting that another 5 years, and these countries will vanish from the map of the world because they will be all submerged in the waters because of the climate change. Now, when somebody is thinking about doing a business for next 10 years with these countries, they will think twice because the natural environment is not in favor of them. So, on the other hand, you talk about countries like India, where which are bestowed with natural resources. South Africa, for that matter, has got very good natural resources, but because of access to water, because of lack of skilled manpower, because of problems related to poverty and submission to USA, all those things have got impacted that particular economy. But otherwise, they're very good in many of the natural resources like diamonds and all, which other countries don't have in the world. So, and location, how close that particular country is to the ports, that also has got a major impact on how businesses are being run. So all these environments beyond the control of the political, social, cultural, economic, legal, technological, natural, these are all broader environments which are right. Then we talk about, you can just have a glance at this. What are the, why is business environment significant? Because, see, sometimes, when you understand the environment and you are the first one to respond to the environment, then you as a company will become something called as a first mover. When you move first in the market by reacting to an environmental change, making use of the environmental opportunity which is there, then you will enjoy something called as a first mover advantage. Companies which do something before other companies do, they will be called as first mover advantage. An example is being given to you. So that will help. Once you know the business environment, once you have captured the opportunity in the environment, you will be able to move first in the market. Analysis of the business environment also will signal to the business what kind of bad things may happen, warnings it will give to the business so that the kind of damage that can happen from a threat or a crisis can be reduced for that particular business. Similarly, customer focus can be greater in case you understand the business environment very well. Formulation of strategies can also be done depending upon to which sector you belong. The kind of image that you have in the people can also be improved, and because business you assume that it is going to exist for a long time. We study in accounts also perpetual existence, so you say business is going to exist for a long time. So when you say for a long time, naturally for that to stay you have to learn, and that learning can come only when you examine the environments which are around you. Now, how do you examine? Because all this time we are saying predict the environment, learn the changes which are there, examine what is happening around you. That process of understanding the environment carefully is called as environmental scanning. We will stop with environmental scanning. I guess you have a class at 3:30, so you can just proceed for that. So environmental scanning is basically monitoring the changes in the environment so that you can adjust your business activities according to the changes in the environment. You have Denon, which gave the definition and said that a systematic corporate planning, if you have to do, then the base for the systematic corporate planning will be related to an analysis of the environment. Unless you do a systematic analysis of the environment, you will not be able to do a systematic planning of your business. So environmental scanning becomes essential. And in environmental scanning, why is there a need? So that you know the resources and all the need for scanning, a part of the earlier one only. When you see how environmental scanning is actually being done, that's what your next class is scheduled at 3:30. I'll just take another 2 minutes to wind this up. And with this, your one part will be over. So I don't want to linger with this in the next session. Now, when you say environmental scanning, we are basically talking about understanding what will happen in the future so that my business will not be impacted negatively. So, how do you understand? You have to first know what are the environmental factors: cultural, social, economic, demographic, technological, legal, political, within the company, physical resources, financial resources, HR resources, which factor you want to examine. So, first identify the factor. Then, what are the sub factors, key factors within that main factor? Under that main factor, there are some variables which you have to define. So, for example, you want to understand consumers. So, what do you want to understand? Age composition, gender, education, social class to which they belong, all those things will come into it. Then, how have you scanned the environment? So, techniques which are available for scanning the environment. Then, you design the profiles and then take a decision related to the scans. That process will be there. And how do you do that? You can do that with the help of something called a SWOT analysis, where you are talking about understanding the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. SWOT stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. So when you know what strength and weaknesses is internal for you, so you will be able to assess strengths and weaknesses of your business. Opportunities and threats are external, where they are present in the environment. So you have to apply prediction tools in order to understand what kind of opportunities are there in the market and what kind of threats are there. If you have captured the opportunity, that can be converted into a strength. If you are not able to withstand a threat, which is challenge in the market, then that may become a weakness as well. So therefore, you have to do an analysis of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in the business as well. So this was related to your today's session, where we spoke about the various aspects. Just to go back to the discussion and sum up, we spoke about what is business, splitting, and then what is environment. Together, what is business environment. Then we have spoken about what are the objectives of business environment, what is the nature of business environment, what are the various components, internal and external, and then how can businesses be studied, the environment be studied. These things we have covered in today's session, which is also a part of your lesson, which is your lesson 1, unit 1, which was environment of a business, where we spoke about all these environmental factors which are right. So probably in the next class session that we have, we will talk about internal environment of a business in deep, and then international environment of a business in deep. Any questions in today's class? No questions?
Hi, ma'am. This is about our study material, ma'am. Regarding, we didn't get the study material for this current subject yet, as far as my knowledge.
You haven't
study material, ma'am.
You have not received, you are saying?
Yes, ma'am.
But the probably your Krishna sir is the right person to answer to you this, so you can get in touch with him.
Okay.
And he will be able to help you with the material, because as a resource person, we were supplied a brief soft copy of what are the contents. So if the soft copy is there, probably he would be able to share with you all as well. So you just get in touch with him.
Okay.
All right then. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening ahead. Bye.